Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Regional Council meeting for August the 11th, 2025. I acknowledge the Northern Rockies Administration Center is located in the heart of traditional territory of our friends, our neighbors, and our partners at Treaty 8 of the Dene Cree and Denizah people of Fort Nelson and Prophet River First Nations. We further recognize the rights provided by our treaty, and we also recognize and celebrate the contributions and enduring presence of the Métis people in our region. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually and is being streamed and recorded. Are there any council additions? No. Is there any public who wishes to speak to anything on tonight's agenda? Anybody in the gallery? No? Anybody online? No? Okay, adoption of the agenda is in order. Please move by Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Gruing. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes. Thank you. We have 3 sets of minutes for adoption. A special regional council meeting of July the 14th, 2025. The regional council meeting July 14th, 2025. Committee of the whole July 28th, 2025 for adoption. Somebody move. Councillor Gruing move for adoption. Councillor Souls, are there any errors or omissions? None from council staff? Any errors or omissions? No? Okay. Having no changes to the minutes, I'll call the question. All in favor of adoption? Opposed? Those are adopted. Thank you. Is there any business arising from those minutes? No? Council staff? Okay. Good. Okay. Well, that takes us to our petition delegation, sorry. Matt Colton Kersop, Division Manager, Senior Planner with McElhaney is here to speak to the Complete Communities report, and I believe he has a presentation for us.
Yes, good evening, Council. Thank you for the introduction. I will just get my screen sharing going. Let me know if you see the introductory slide.
Yes, it's up there. The title slide's there.
Yeah, I'll get started. Over the next 10 minutes, this presentation is intended to provide an overview of the Complete Communities assessment that we undertook for the Fort Nelson area on behalf of your municipality. The presentation focuses on the engagement results and our technical analysis of 4 key actions that have the potential to make Fort Nelson a more complete community, as detailed in the engagement summary report and the alternate futures memo attached to the staff report. So the Complete Communities Guide put out by Clean BC provides a 3-phase methodology, and the 3 phases are prepare, assess, and act. In this 3-phase project, the first phase of the work was to prepare, and we prepared by pulling together as much data as was available through your municipality, through other open data sources, through BC Stats, through Stats Canada, and a ton of other stats that our GIS team has at their fingertips, so that we could begin to do an analysis of completeness of your community according to the framework provided by the Clean BC Complete Communities Guide. Phase 2 of the project is to assess the data and gather community input to identify what actions could be made to move the needle, so to speak, on making Fort Nelson a more complete community. This was, pardon me, done through a blend of technical analysis, community engagement in Fort Nelson, and discussions with staff and other interest holders. The recommended actions that came out of the engagement and met the test of moving Fort Nelson towards a higher level of completeness as defined in the guide include the following actions. The first of which is an expanded seniors supportive housing, the second of which is scheduled bus service, the third of which is building a new dedicated dog park, and the fourth of which is putting up a temporary pop-up market space. In the third and final phase of the project, it's called ACT, and it's by preparing a final report with a high-level implementation plan to feed into staff and council decision-making, future planning studies, grant applications, and ongoing advocacy, and submitting the final report to UBCM. So in terms of community engagement, approximately 236 residents engaged in this project, with 101 of them completing the online survey. We also completed 25 hours of direct engagement in the community in person, either in key informant interviews, panel discussions, at pop-up engagement stations in the community. And the main topics that were engaged on included housing choices and options, services, amenities, and retail options, which services or facilities may or may not need improving, and movement around town and access to major destinations. Feedback was gathered at a range of events and locations, including at a street festival in September of last year, at Challow School, at the Northern Rockies Recreation Center over 2 different evenings and 1 afternoon, and through a number of interviews with various community groups and agencies, including the Northern Rockies Child Development Association, School District 81, Accessibility and Inclusion Committee, the Fort Nelson Literary Society, the Northern Lamplighter Society, and one community group open session that was open to a number of different community groups, as well as an NRM staff working session. Big themes that came up frequently included increased opportunities for socialization, more opportunities for local sales, marketing, and entrepreneurship, introducing a scheduled bus route around town, and more affordable and assisted seniors housing. To our technical analysis that informed our recommendations. Our spatial analysis was completed to map the most feasible locations for each action. The analysis showed that the 4 proposed actions would enhance livability, promote mobility, support sustainable growth, and promote economic development. Each scenario was selected for being either achievable or a significant improvement. When it comes to actions that are achievable, these are actions that are within the Northern Rockies regional municipalities' financial and operating capabilities, and these targeted actions enhance livability for residents and visitors. And the 2 actions in this category are the establishment of a new dog park and the temporary pop-up marketplace. When it comes to actions that are a significant improvement to make Fort Nelson a more livable and self-reliant community, we're talking about the 2 actions that include the seniors housing and scheduled transit service. So when we're looking at what's achievable, we note that the seniors housing and transit will require collaboration with other orders of government. These are complicated and large scale projects that will take much longer term to fully come to fruition or just to explore the feasibility of them. But then there are some shorter term projects like the dog park and the pop-up marketplace that are more closely within NRM's ability to deliver on a shorter time and to directly act on. Nothing in this report is intended to bind the municipality to act. Rather, they should be thought of as suggestions about how to move the needle on completeness and to inform further planning and analysis, grant applications, or feasibility studies. These actions were informed and selected by community engagement, but as the slide indicates, they also scored highly in the spatial analysis. And I'll get into each one on subsequent slides now. So when we looked at the addition of a dog park, this is a way to create a low-cost, high-impact gathering space that encourages social interaction amongst residents and promotes active lifestyles for both people and pets. It also supports community well-being by fostering a sense of connection and belonging in a shared and welcoming environment. We also heard that there are potential benefits around teaching residents and their pets responsible pet ownership behaviors and socializations. Based on our technical analysis, this map is showing, just trying to get my pointer here, showing that option 3 is a preferred location to add a dog park due to the presence of existing amenities such as seating, waste receptacles, a parking lot, and proximity to the community trail, which is a great sort of connection to this potential dog park site. The site offers an outdoor recreation amenity to residents on the east side of town, where there are fewer recreational opportunities at present, and the site is easily visible from the highway, which could attract travelers to stop and visit Fort Nelson for longer periods of time. And so just think of our recommendation as being somewhere in this area, even if it ended up, further over towards the airport connector, that's fine. We're just sort of emphasizing that this side of town with a lower score on the percentage of daily needs within 400 meters helps balance that out. When it comes to the pop-up marketplace, the temporary pop-up marketplace can stimulate local economic development by providing resident vendors as well as out-of-town vendors with an opportunity to promote their small business. It could be a home-based business. It could be an expanded offering from one of your existing retailers. It helps strengthen the circular economy and attract visitors to the community, and provides residents with an opportunity to try something different and do a little bit of celebration. Over time, these spaces can contribute to sustained business growth, increasing foot traffic, and a stronger downtown core, and be a visual beacon to locals and visitors. Of the considered sites, option 3, which is over here in the dark red, is basically located coincidentally with the parking lot at Simpson Trail and 51st Avenue. This was selected as a suitable location for a temporary pop-up market because it's a central location, it's paved and it's level, and it supports the continued revitalizations in the downtown, increases the proximity to daily needs score for the area, and brings amenities, vendors, and the public to a central location that many residents can easily access. This location is also in proximity to areas identified in the downtown revitalization plan. They were identified as open space opportunity and public realm enhancements. The recommended site is an NRM-owned site, which offers control to move the project forward efficiently. And the location of the site makes it relatively accessible for all residents, with ample parking nearby, especially if you're only using a portion of the lot for this pop-up marketplace, and proximity to the rec center, which has additional parking. The site is also near the highway, and wayfinding signage, which I know is a project you're currently working on, could be added to draw visitors into town. The use of this space for a market could be scheduled to align with local festivals at times of year when the whole parking lot isn't needed for events at the rec center. And then moving on to the expanded seniors housing. To determine the best location for additional seniors housing, NRM staff suggested starting with municipally owned land that could be provided for this kind of housing. This is a good practice, as it can attract additional dollars from other orders of government. When they're looking to establish partnerships, they often look to municipalities to make in-kind contributions, such as land. The NRM owns the parcels of land shown on this map near an existing seniors housing site known as Heritage Place. This site has the advantage of being located on flat land. It's in an area with one of the highest rated proximity to daily needs scores in Fort Nelson, by being located within walking distance to a grocery store, a nearby medical clinic, and the post office. This level of accessibility supports aging in place and residents' ability to maintain independence and social engagement while accessing healthcare and supports. These factors make the location a strong candidate for future seniors housing development or expansion. Should the municipality wish to make use of this land for future seniors housing, or use this study to inform grant applications or advocacy, our technical analysis can help backstop those efforts. On the matter of a scheduled bus service, establishing scheduled bus routes in Fort Nelson can help meet the basic transportation needs expressed by residents during engagement. The recommended public transit route shown on this map and in our alternate futures report includes bus stops through the residential neighborhoods on the west and east side of town, 3 stops along the Alaska Highway, so the downtown is well served by public transit, and 2 stops in the Fort Nelson First Nation. This route responds directly to the feedback received during public engagement. The bus route would increase the proportion of population living within 400 meters of a bus stop to 60 to 80% of all residents living north of the Alaska Highway. So that is the area in dark green. When you look over at the legend, these people are between 60 and 80% of people would be located within 400 meters of the route and or stops. And when it comes to south of the Alaska Highway, 40 to 60% of any residents or workers south of the Alaska Highway would be within 400 meters of the bus service, and approximately 20% of residents or workers in Muskwa Heights would be in proximity to the bus service. So the recommended route would effectively serve the population quite well and meet the target indicator of having a significant proportion of residents living within 400 meters of a bus stop. The route would need to consider, of course, operating costs, service hours, travel frequency, and route distance. And once again, should the municipality wish to take steps to advance further transit planning, they can use this study to inform grant applications or advocacy and rely on this technical analysis to help backstop those efforts and explain the value of the preliminary route design. So this presentation represents the final deliverable for phase 2 of the Complete Community Assessment Project. In terms of next steps, McElhaney will collaborate with Northern Rockies municipal staff to prepare a final report that summarizes all phases of the project, the public engagement feedback, the 4 recommended options, and it will include an implementation plan to guide further future planning and advocacy. The final report will be presented to council and submitted to UBCM next month in September, pending council acceptance. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be pleased to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. I certainly appreciate it. I believe there'll be some questions. Anybody have any questions?
I do have some concerns, but I don't know if you want me to address them now or when we go into report 38.
I think if you've got anything that that the consultant might be interested in hearing, I think it would now would be the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have 3 pages of notes and concerns, and like, yeah, I tried to summarize it into a briefer document. So yeah, I'm just gonna, how many times do I get to speak? Twice? That was also really weighing very heavy on me, but anyways, okay.
It's twice now.
Okay. So the way the alternate futures memorandum summary report is presented, it seems to me like the community engagement process outlined these 4 priority areas: the scheduled public bus route, more seniors affordable and assisted living suites, increased opportunities for socialization, improved local sales, and entrepreneurship. When in fact, I believe the community took a much broader focus on what makes a complete community. Discounting or not modeling healthcare and improvements to primary and post-secondary services because they are a provincial government responsibility, or in the case of education, limitations to how much the NRM can influence changes to the availability and location of educational services, is not future focused, nor does it completely reflect what the community had to say. The community engagement process had a lot to say on the 4 lenses: transportation, daily needs, housing, and infrastructure, all of which are lenses of a complete community. In my opinion, by limiting next steps to establishing a dog park, creating a pop-up marketplace, expanding affordable and assisted living options for seniors in terms of a new build, and a scheduled bus route does not reflect all of what the community had to say and is a missed opportunity. Without some sort of focus on healthcare and education and incorporating more of the ideas, thoughts, and solutions suggested by the community, next steps would be incomplete. Developing an implementation plan based solely on the 4 recommendations would be too narrow of a focus, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, staff or I'm just forgetting your name, I'm sorry. Colton, do you have, is there any comments that you'd like to make on the counselor's comments?
Certainly, like I said in one of my slides, we looked at a bit of a blend of both achievable things that would be simple to accomplish, as well as significant improvements. And so the simple things that we identified in terms of the dog park and the pop-up marketplace, we felt that those were direct suggestions that we were getting from the public. They also aligned with the indicator of putting more services and functions into the community. We focused on services or functions that don't currently exist, whereas you do have existing educational facilities, you do have existing hospitals. And so the hard things that we chose that are more indirectly under the influence of the municipality include the seniors housing, because often seniors housing or non-market forms of housing can be incentivized by municipalities. They can use their land or in-kind contributions to attract funding. And the transit service was something that we understood the region was already looking into. And so we ran a spatial analysis on the proposed route, and it looked quite good. And so we thought this analysis would be useful to the municipality in further evaluating or assessing that potential. At the end of the day, we can make as long a list as the municipality wants, but we really wanted to focus on things that we were hearing the most frequently and the most forcefully about.
Yeah, thanks for that, Colton. I understand, you know, where you're coming from. Was the scope of this limited to stay away from some of the provincial services that would make a community complete? Like, is there a scope based on the grant? Is there a limitation of the scope? And I guess the reason I'm saying that is I tend to agree with Councillor Gerwing in the fact that, you know, healthcare and education, although provincial responsibilities are key, they're cornerstones to a community and the longevity of a community. And if we've got gaps, it seems to me that a complete communities report, even in the identification of those gaps, like you did with respect to transit and seniors housing, I mean, we're not directly responsible for that, but you've identified potential things that we can do, like lobbying and advocacy. A report like this that shows that we've got concerns around education and healthcare would assist us, you know, so it's a UBCM driven, provincial driven process that gets us to, you know, what a complete community would be. If those things are in the community with some recommendations, it gives us the ability to take them forward to the province and say, see, it's not just us, right? You give us legitimacy with respect to a third party identifying the potential for us. There's good stuff in there. There's no doubt about it on, you know, you've identified that, but then we've sort of just left it aside because it's sort of out of our realm. And I was just wondering if that's a scope issue or if it's just we've all decided, no, we're not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole because it's really not our responsibility. But in the end, it is our responsibility. Like, we're not going to get anything done unless we press for it. And the more, thank you, the more information we have or ammunition, as Councillor Andrews has said, you know, gives us, I guess, that ability to potentially sway at the provincial level. So.
Sure. So
my
one of the items that is mentioned in the What We Heard report somewhere is that there was support for a CT scanner in the hospital. We can certainly make sure that shows up in our report and could be added to our list of recommendations, because we did hear that.
And yeah,
Is that
the
the kind
mental,
of-
I just wanted to also focus on the mental health information that you've got in the report and refer to that as well, because that's although we do have a hospital and it's likely to come under review, a 10-year review pretty soon, although we do have doctors who can physically, that are doing their best in our community. There's a big gap here when it comes to mental health, and I think we certainly would like to press on that as well.
Can I interject?
Councilor Growing,
Yeah.
please.
I would just like to quote something from the report. Healthcare facilities and services were also recognized as one of the top priorities. Meet increasing healthcare demands, investment in healthcare infrastructure and services were seen as essential. Strengthening healthcare facilities and service offerings would support the broader goal of making the NRM a more complete and resilient community. Residents value the advocacy and investments of the NRM and support this important work. This is not my words. These are words taken directly from the report. So
Yeah, and Councilor Growing, I don't disagree that any of that was mentioned or is of value, but a big part of this work is a spatial analysis. And so, when we look at spatial analysis, yes, you have a hospital and it's the things inside it that we can't spatially analyze. But if you're asking for us to make greater mention of all the stuff that we heard, I can definitely take that back and make sure that the final report speaks to that. But it's not going to be positioned as a spatial analysis. It's going to be positioned as things that we heard that are important to residents.
Go ahead.
okay, so I know this is my third time, sorry, but
Who's counting?
okay, thanks. I think it's, for me, the term complete community has to encompass all of the lenses. And there was so much rich information delivered by our community that isn't reflected in the next stages or the next steps moving forward. So when I think about food insecurity, when I think about lack of access to appropriate medical services, when I think about seniors, that yes, I 100% agree that we need to be looking at housing for seniors, but we need dementia care. We need supported care for our seniors today, not when we can get a new building built. Yeah, I've got 3 pages of stuff that just didn't resonate with me. I just really think it's important that the report reflects what was heard by the community, that we heard what the community said, and then our action plan can be taken from that. So I agree that a dog park would be lovely and an asset, and that people in our community want that. But should that be our number one focus over advocacy for healthcare services or for supported services for seniors or for developmental testing for children? I just don't know.
I was just going to say it. Those things lend themselves to a spatial analysis, and that's what he's doing. Where the services that we're talking about don't, and I get his point on that. But it doesn't mean we can't split this report right into 2 sides. That one that deals with the spatial analysis of things, and the other maybe services that make our community more complete. And and that then gives us a tool that we can go forward with on both sides of the equation, the buildings and the nice things to have, and that will make us more complete. Some that we can be responsible for. We have perhaps the budget to do that. Others, we need partners. But the other side of it is to say, hey, we've got this report, and it draws from our community. We agree with it. And we're gonna move forward to the ministries, as more ammunition for what we've been trying to achieve. Go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you very much, council, for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for the comments. We want to make sure that this is relevant for the community. Over the past 5 years, the planning department's undertaken several different types of studies and presented reports to council, many of which have been based on community engagement.
Oh.
This is one report of several that we have where we have heard loud and clear the same things over and over from the community. We've recognized that this is, we are hearing the same things over and over, which to me is a pretty good indication that we need to stop and start looking at implementation. This report is one of 6 that I've recommended that we take and we pull all the information, what we heard, all the recommendations from those 6 reports and put it into one document of this is what we've heard over the last 5 years from the community, and use that as a basis for a conversation with council of where are those priorities? What do you want to focus on? So the Complete Communities report is one of those reports, but we've also got the downtown revitalization. We had great engagement from the community through the OCP planning process. We had the interim housing needs report that has recommendations in it, as well as the transportation strategy and the rural health advocacy. So those were the 6 plans that we were planning on having a consultant come in and just take all that information. It also helps inform that implementation plan in our new OCP. So rather than bogging down the OCP with a bunch of intangible actions, we've got focus areas that talk to transportation, housing, those sort of things. But this would help inform what are those actions that we actually want to take under those focus areas based on council's input. So that's kind of the plan for the next step. So as much as I recognize there's things in this complete community needs assessment that need to be recognized because we heard it from the community, we also need to take all those other documents and put them into something that council can then look at and say, yes, this is where we want to focus our time and energy. That's it.
And all of that would inform the official community plan, which then recognizes all of this spatial stuff and, yeah. Go ahead.
So would it be fair to say that we don't necessarily need to come up with recommendations at this point in time for the Complete Communities report? Because if we are going to do and I would fully support doing an in-depth review of all of these reports and coming up with, we've talked about this before, with a broader scope of associated actions. My hesitancy is these 4 recommendations at this time.
So these 4 recommendations, like Colton alluded to, are things that are quick wins, tangible, easy to implement in the interim to address some of the things that we heard from the community. Not all the things we heard from the community, that's for sure. We do have to have some recommendations and some implementation items to appease the province essentially to receive our grant funding. This project was 100% grant funded through UBCM. So we do have to stick to a certain format in order to get our grant funding.
So then in terms of the 4 lenses that they've asked us to look at, so infrastructure, I mean, the dog park and the pop-up market could go under infrastructure. The daily needs, we could then encapsulate some of the other items that we heard from the community engagement process. And we could perhaps not discount education and healthcare because that's what we heard, right? And associated actions could simply be continue advocacy work around our healthcare with trying to achieve equitable access to healthcare services. I don't think it has to be more detailed than that. And in terms of education, and I might be misremembering this, but I don't think we've had a document in some time that actually addresses our lack of post-secondary opportunities in this community by the college, especially when you compare to what goes on post-secondary in Fort St. John and Dawson Creek. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm headed for that. So if we were to take those 4 lenses and incorporate more of what the community had to say, then and the transportation was the other one, is I don't know that I'm a supporter of a scheduled bus service, but when I read the public engagement, and we've seen it in some of our others as well, is that the public, and I guess I could quote this, because most respondents supported the idea of a formal public transit service suggesting a community bus or taxi system. So there's like, you know, the Uber or the ride shares, like, again, that's could be incorporated in there's so much that could be incorporated in transportation, right? That I just find it, oh yeah, Colton's got his hand up. Okay, I'll stop. I'm gonna wrap up. I
Great.
just would like to see a bit more focus on that.
Colton, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to Councillor Gerwing's suggestion there, I do find some beauty in that if we are putting together a final report, we could organize daily needs by including the comments that you noted around healthcare and specifically post-secondary education. Under the infrastructure lens, we could move the dog park and the pop-up marketplace into that lens. And then under the housing lens, it would speak to the seniors and maybe some of the accessible housing comments we got. And then with the transportation lens, duly noted that ground transportation is a pretty big thing to get your hands around. But it probably could also speak to that improved regional bus connections that we know that we've heard a lot about. So if that is a direction that you're comfortable with, I think that's a direction that we could make sure shows up in the final report.
One more thing.
This is number 5. I'm so sorry. But so thank you very much, Colton. I really appreciate how flexible you are. So just under daily needs, if we could also include what we heard from seniors that need support today. So they are asking for support that allows them to stay in their homes for longer, or to stay in Grace Manor or Heritage Place longer. They currently, we lack supports. We have the housing there, but we lack the support that would allow seniors to stay in those places longer. So thank you.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay. How do you feel?
So relieved. Thank
Oh,
you.
good. Good. Okay, are there any other comments? Councillor Andrews, Councillor Souls? Oh, okay. So again, thank you very much, Colton, for taking the time to present this to us. I think you've got some marching orders, and we'll look forward to the next step.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Okay, last word to staff. Anything else you guys would like to add?
No, just thank you, Colton, for the presentation, and thank you, Councillor Gerwing, Mayor. Thanks for your comments. We'll ensure that those are incorporated.
Okay, good. Then that will take us. I got my agenda spread all over because of that takes us to the report itself, I think, right? Was next, yeah, 4320, oh no, sorry, 3825, complete communities needs strategy, the update for discussion, 8.1. So I will turn it over to staff while I muddle through here and find, I could probably find it easier on a computer, but no, I got it. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
Thanks.
The report was just made to provide some background information on the presentation we were just given. You heard the report, we were able to discuss it, so we'll look forward to incorporating your comments and present the final report with the also to the project funder at the end of the month. Thanks.
Okay, anybody have any questions? I think we had a pretty good discussion there, and it covers off, I think, what staff might be looking for from our comments anyways. Good. All right, then that will take us to Administration Report 4325, which is the Community Shuttle Program. And isn't it interesting that we already started talking about that? Go ahead, Lisa, please.
Good evening again, Mayor and councillors. This is just a report with a bit of an update on the community shuttle program that was initiated by Regional Council and the Northern Rocky Senior Society in 2024. Since our last update, the Northern Rocky Senior Society has had a change in management. and identified some concerns and challenges to running a community shuttle program. And as such has indicated that they, at this time, are no longer interested in supporting that program or have the capacity to run that program. The report goes on just to talk about the financial implications. So the regional council had approved a $55,000 annual 2-year grant to the Northern Rockies Senior Society directly related to the operation of a transit system. And obviously that won't be occurring. So the Northern Rockies Senior Society has requested a new request for funding, which is included in your agenda for tonight. Thank you.
Does the staff have any ideas of where to move the community shuttle program from here? I know Prophet River is still interested and I haven't heard from FNFN. So have we reached out at all? I know, you know, capacity is changed since we put all this together. So I don't know if it's still, is it still on our priority list of things to work on?
It is still, we're still aware. So I was giving space to the Northern Rockies Senior Society to get their grant funding cleared up with NDIT, who's supporting the project. And to find out if NDIT was just going to hold the funds in reserve. And it sounds like to an extent they are, although Northern Rockies Senior Society, I think now can use that funding for their regular service. So I'm not entirely clear where that funding sits and if there would have to be a new application to NDIT if someone like the regional municipality wanted to take on a project ourselves. So, with that said, it's still on our radar, but we are looking at filling our regional development officer position. And we can certainly circle back to this in the near future.
Well, I know we have a meeting scheduled with Prophet River Chief and Council and administration, and I have spoken to them. They are still interested in something like this. It's unfortunate that they didn't come forward when this was all sort of being put together in the first place, but they are interested. So I think it's a topic that we talk to them about when we do the meeting here in August. I think it's still August. Yeah, and you're correct with respect to that. I also checked at NDIT, the funding, not just our funding, but the total grant is still available to the region. It's just that it would have to, whatever gets developed and as looking to access that grant would just have to go through the senior society to get it, because the senior society is one who applied for it and was awarded it. So it, you know, it would add a little bit of work to access that funding, because you'd have to bring them in to get the funding, and then they would, for lack of a better term, subcontract it and have access to that. So yeah, so yeah, I'm still interested. I think based on these studies, the transportation study, this study, you know, it is still something that that the public is looking for, is enhanced transportation, whatever that ends up looking like. I heard your comment about not necessarily thinking that the scheduled service was the best option, but certainly folks in town are looking to see that, and I think it helps us to become a much more complete community. Those are my thoughts. Does anybody else have any thoughts with respect to this report? Go ahead.
So will we have the ability in the future to look at something that isn't necessarily a scheduled service? Like, would this funding perhaps be available to support increased capacity at the NRSS shuttle service? Or we did have a letter from the taxi cab owner, or from the person that owns the license for the taxi cab service, that said they would be interested and perhaps willing to operate again in the region, but would need some sort of subsidy because the cost of it is just, and the limited ridership is such a lower that they would need some sort of subsidy to make it a viable option. And then two, I know Alicia just posted about Uber. I don't know that they've had any uptake And Hillary had done work on with the rideshare company. What was it? Coastal Rides, yeah. So could this funding somehow be incorporated into subsidies that these various transportation opportunities could perhaps apply for subsidies?
I don't believe that this particular funding that the NRS has acquired could be used for that. However, I'm sure there are other opportunities for funding that could support other things related to transportation, which we'll certainly keep an eye out for. Uber has expanded their licensing across BC, which is good news. So yes, we've asked communications to share that broadly. And there's, from my understanding, an incentive for new drivers to sign up. Again, it comes down to having class 4 drivers, and that was the issue that we, encountered with Coastal Rides. They advertised locally. There wasn't any uptake because of that need for the class 4 driver's license. And then as far as taxi, we've been in communication, or were previously in communication with the previous taxi company owner in town, and asked them to consider submitting a request directly to council for council's consideration, because we can't help what we don't know the issue is, right? So that hasn't happened, to my knowledge, yet, but we have encouraged them to reach out directly to council, like through a letter of what exactly is your request if you're looking for support. So we do continue to look at opportunities to improve transportation within the community. It's just, it's a challenge because of various reasons, but we are continuing to look. We'll continue to look at grant funding opportunities as well. And if council's willing to pitch in some money for a transit system or a bus, I'm sure, that is something we could bring back to council as well. But I know the Northern Rockies Senior Society struggles with capacity and providing the service for their own residents and their own, like for the seniors in the community. So adding that extra, funding, I don't know if it necessarily helps unless it's significant. And there's also issues around licensing, providing certain services as well. So there's a lot to consider. And putting that type of, I guess, request on a small society like the Northern Rockies Senior Society might seem quite intimidating, I guess, right?
Well, I know Diversified was contacted. I don't know to what degree they were involved in sort of those initial discussions, but maybe that's our another step we can take is reaching out to them and trying to see if they've got any ideas with respect to how we might achieve it. I mean, they're in the business, right? I mean, they're in a particular sector of the business, but I'm sure they're big all around. So that might be a step for us.
Diversify was definitely identified as one of the partners on the application that went into NDIT. And they were willing to provide support in the way of like expertise around creating routes and just operating a bus system essentially. But that was the extent of it. It was really, identified in the application, and then obviously the project really didn't get off the ground. So.
Yeah. They may have been reluctant to sort of step on the toes of the senior society if they thought it was going to help them.
Yeah.
Right. And so maybe there's an opportunity there to get their take on it now that there's been a change. Good. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah. So let's deal with it under correspondence when we get to it. We're just about there anyway. So administrative report 4425 is the Mountain View condo budget request. Staff, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The report before you this evening is a request to increase the budget that was initially established to cover unforeseen costs associated with asbestos abatement, additional electrical upgrades, necessary drywall and finishing work. The increase will also support the installation of new kitchen cabinets, and that will allow the unit to be ready for occupancy.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
I just have a comment. So we were worried about this when we accepted the donation. So just to make the point that, it's the gift that keeps on taking. So
Yeah.
yes, there you go.
Matter of process. Did this need to come to us? Could you guys have dealt with this, or is it a budget, because it's a change to a budget item? That it came to us?
Honestly, we don't have good policy direction, to be honest with you, so
Yeah.
to be safe, we brought, because I mean, it's within my authority to be able to
Yeah.
make changes,
Yeah,
but to keep everything fully transparent, considering we
Yeah.
proposed something to council to say this is how much it was to do upgrades to the project, we had a budget established.
yeah, and it changed.
We'd be
Okay.
explaining at a later date that we've gone over that budget and I approved it versus, so I'd rather do it versus ask for
All right.
forgiveness if we don't have to.
Okay,
And it's a budget amendment technically, right? Because
Yeah.
either way, even from an auditing perspective, the auditors are gonna look for some kind of trail where we could justify that we were able to continue on outside of typical scope
Okay.
too, right? So.
good. Thought I'd ask.
I may have failed to mention that the request was for $25,000.
Yeah, it's there. All right, what would council like to do? Counselor Andrews,
I'll make a motion that the budget for renovations to number 36 Mountain View condos, a property owned by the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, be amended to 100,000 with the additional 25,000 required to be allocated from the Building and Facilities Reserve Fund.
thank you. Moved by Counselor Andrews. Do I have a second, or Counselor Souls? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Are there any opposed? That carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to correspondence. 9.1, we had an addition from the Northern Rockies Senior Society. Staff have really already explained that the 55,000 that they were looking for as part of this project didn't talk about what would happen if it didn't move forward. And so, historically, I think there's been a grant of $15,000 to them. I don't know, it's an annual request. I don't think it's like they come back and they have to ask for it every year, right? Correct? Yeah. So it's not just something that we do. They have to ask for it every year. So in lieu of the 55,000 being transferred, I think they're looking for $15,000, what they received in the past, so. Council thoughts.
I think it's only fair that we continue to support the Northern Rockies Senior Society's transportation project in the amount of $15,000, again, for the 2025 budget season.
Would you like to make that a motion?
I did,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah.
Do I have a seconder on that motion? Counselor Addick, moved by Counselor Groving, second by Counselor Andrews, that we provide a $15,000 grant in aid to the Northern Rockies Senior Society for the 2025 year
For transportation.
for transportation. Further discussion? Counselor Andrews.
I'd just like to go to, they do outline it in the letter, but I just wanted to verbalize it as well, that they're not only providing transportation for the seniors, they also, any community member can utilize the bus as well. And with the report showing we need transportation, I think this is an easy way to support transportation in our community.
Thank you. I think they may have found that there's some licensing issues, but I think they're able to continue doing what they're doing. As long as it's not a scheduled service, it's a pickup type service. So, yeah, called to go. Okay, any other thoughts?
I just think that maybe we could assist the Northern Rockies Senior Society in advertising, communicating that this is a service because it was brought up in the community engagement for the complete communities. The community engagement part of it was brought up that the community as a whole doesn't necessarily understand that the bus service is open and available to more than just seniors. So we have such a great communication department now that maybe we could aid them on our socials in sharing the word.
Perfect. Okay. We'll move on to,
I guess we
I think- did we vote? Oh, okay. All in favor of that? Are there any opposed? Seeing none, that passes. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me on track. So for information, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pieces of information there for discussion. Is there any of those that anybody would like to pull out? I think I would like to pull out 9.10, the letter from James Cool with respect to the Casca. And I was told just before the meeting that we may have a representative online to answer any questions that we might have to that. So could I have a motion to put 910 on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Gerwing, second by Councillor Andrews. Thank you very much. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes. So we sent a pretty good letter. We got a lot of information from a lot of response from people in the community and around the region actually about this land use planning process. And you know, particularly I think the concerns that we received from our business owners and some of the folks up the highway was the time frame with respect to how this is being put together. I think there are still some concerns from old guys like myself that went through the land use planning process in the 90s that, you know, we felt it was such a good process, even though it was time consuming and probably a little costly to the province. But as far as community engagement and input went, I think it was one of the, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most successful organizations or operations or processes that I've been involved with. And there's still a lot of those members from the LRMPs still kicking around and interested in all of these activities that have been going on. And they're speaking up, you know, about why, asking questions about why it's not the same. And so we fired off a letter to the ministry expressing our concerns and having our asking our questions. The letter came back essentially saying, you know, that the planning process is only as initial stages, that there will be more opportunities for input. You know, I suppose that remains to be seen exactly what that is. I haven't gone on the website. It recommends that we go on the website and have a look at what those are. I will do that. I know there are many people very interested, and I think the letter quotes how many people actually have participated so far, and it's a lot. It's a lot of people, and so there's a lot of interest in what the Casca Nation is interested in doing there. And for me, I don't have any questions for the representative that might be on today, but some of you might. I think we want to continue. It behooves us with the amount of input we've been getting from people in the region and in our community and up and down the highway. It behooves us to stay involved in this and you know, and keep pressing wherever we can to ensure that people get an opportunity to speak up. I did the questionnaire. You know, I thought there was gaps in it with respect to identifying some of those particular areas of that we want to maintain access to, you know, if not the entire area. It says that access is something that will remain a high priority, but it doesn't guarantee it, right? And so those are our concerns when we start seeing the overlap of all of these. Caribou, which is on tonight's, you know, that's been approved. The mining, the fires, the forestry issues that have been happening, and you know, the potential for parks to be created is really starting to impact. I'm not going to say negatively impact, you know, because there are people who believe that that's the best way to go is to just not do anything out there. But there's certainly going to be impacts, and you know, it behooves us to try to represent as many people as we can in the process. So I know we have a representative online. Are there any questions that you all might have with respect to that letter that she might be able to answer? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. I'm just, in terms of the economic assessment, and, so our question was around, would there, given the short time frame of this whole engagement process, would a year be enough time to actually do a fulsome economic assessment of what this could mean to the area?
So, can we pull up the representative? And I'm sorry, I don't know their name.
Sandra?
Hi,
And I just joined like live. I've been listening, but I just joined live right in the middle of Councillor Goring's question. So if she wouldn't mind repeating it, because I missed the middle part as I was coming on as a panelist.
So it was in terms of an economic assessment, and I believe that the response back was that there would be an economic assessment, but my concern and concern of others is, given the short time frame, would an economic assessment be a fulsome economic assessment be able to be conducted in this short time frame?
Yeah, so we have a contractor in place that we've had in place for a while. And they've been working on getting ready to do, usually there's a baseline assessment that's done that reflects what things are today. And then once there's a plan or options to, after we've done the engagement and put a plan together, then they do an assessment on that and compare it to the baseline. So we've got a consultant in place, things are queued up. We don't anticipate any problems with that analysis being done, within the time frame that our executive has laid out for us.
And then I guess a follow-up is, will this assessment be made public? And if so, would it be made public in a timely manner? Because you're doing an engagement process now without knowing what the economic assessment could possibly be.
Yeah, so great question, and probably two parts to the answer. Like if there's anything specifically that NRMM, pardon me, would like to see incorporated to just give us that information ahead of time. We're exploring the opportunity of having some interaction on what's being developed right now, and as soon as we know if that's possible, we would let NRM know about that. And then when we share, or for the public consumption, the draft plan or plans or whatever it's going to end up being, the social and economic and environmental analysis will be part of what's shared. So it'll be public with the draft plan. And then also when there's a final plan, given whatever kind of comments we get from the draft plan, if there's any changes, then there'll be a sort of final analysis on the final plan.
Thank you.
You bet.
Councillor Souls has a question. Sandra?
Sandra, I had a question as well regarding the baseline, the idea of establishing a baseline based on what we have versus what we could have or should have. As you're aware, like the province itself, Premier and the Forest Minister themselves both talk of a revitalized forest industry, and they both point at the Northern Rockies as a source of fiber for their for the industry, which is one of the mainstay industries in the province of BC. And they point to that, and yet we are sitting in a time when we haven't got a local manufacturing and we have very, very small harvesting taking place. So if you use what we have today as a baseline to establish whether or not that you affect the viability of a future forest industry, I think that was seriously mistaken. We will, so I look at just some of the background, given we recognize that there's a lot of factors going on in our area right now, the scale of the forest fires and so on that are very unprecedented in that, but we are working with a annual allowable cut in this area. That's a very large annual cut of 2.5 million cubic meters, knowing for full well that there will be adjustments in that, and recognizing that not everyone wants to utilize all of it. And I get that. But the idea that you can have spatial alteration of the land map on which the annual cut is based without acknowledging the potential economic benefits of that'll be a hard pill for us to swallow here. So you can't just look for tenure holders and so on in the current ones to establish that baseline. You have to look at what we project as a real potential for forest industry as the baseline for argument in this. Thank you.
Yeah. So Sandra, will there be, is there an opportunity, I guess, for us to meet with the contractor and talk about some of these concerns we have about, what's existing now and what the potential is for that baseline?
Yeah, we've definitely had interest in that, Mayor Fraser, and it's something we're looking into because we just have to be careful with sort of procedure on that.
Yeah.
But it's, you're not the first ones to ask about it. And of course, the more information and knowledge there is out there ahead of time so that it's not perceived as a black box or maybe you didn't catch everything, the better. So I'll definitely take back the NRRM's interest, and we're sort of trying to work through that right now and definitely let you know if that's possible. And in the meantime, like what Councillor Souls just shared, if that can come from the NRRM in some sort of a concern or in writing, at minimum that can go to the contractor as well. So we'll, on two fronts, we'll try to make sure we do the best we can on that.
Yeah, thank you for taking that forward. That was going to be my next thought, is that, it sounds like a letter from us would be accepted with respect to,
yeah.
all our concerns around this. So that would be my next.
Yeah,
Councillor
100%.
Anderson.
Yeah.
I was just curious on how the timeline was established. Like we've had caribou studies done, we've had moose studies done, we've had social economic studies done in just the NRRM, and they've taken years to process, to get feedback on, to get done a fulsome study on. And then you mark here, you've got 3,600 survey responses. I don't see those being completely vetted through in the short time. Like it seems very aggressive, this timeline. I'm just curious where it came from.
Yeah, I agree. It came from our executive. We have a consultant hired to help us evaluate the 3,600, and the survey actually closed on Friday last week at 4:30, August 8th. And we ended up with 3,940 responses, which we're actually thrilled with. I think it just goes to show the importance of the area and of course of the Muskoka-Chika management area and how special it is to people all, in the north and all across the province. And the timeline is just to get to that more clarity as quickly as we can. I think that's, executives' intent. Minimize, we have the tenure pause that's in place, which we talked about when we first came to talk to the NRR early June. I think it was June 9th. So keeping that in place for the smallest amount of time, and seeing where we get in the year. We're motivated. Casca Nation is motivated. We're preparing as best we can to ensure anyone who wants to be involved knows what and when and what to prepare. And we are just sort of getting this going with NRRM. So that's also, what we hope to have is discussions of what else can we do to bring NRRM in. Are there things NRM recommends that we should be doing up north, like bringing in your intel to help us ensure we get the type of engagement that will support the project?
Yeah, are there any other comments? Oh, The question was whether or not the process has a connection with FNFN and whether they're active.
Oh, yeah, so because the area is so big, we have 11 neighboring nations that overlap into the territory, the project area. And we have been in contact with Fort Nelson First Nation and are actively discussing how they'll be participating in the project, as well as other Treaty 8 that overlaps, and then some non-Treaty 8 coming in from the south and from the west.
Okay, thank you very much, Sandra. I think you can expect a follow-up letter, with
Great.
respect to social and economic process for sure. So,
Perfect, thank you.
Thank-
And we look
thank-
forward
thank you very
to
much for your time.
continuing. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
okay, bye for now. Okay, there are 10 other items of correspondence for information. Yeah, go ahead.
So the letter that we send, can we make sure that we CC Jordan Keeley on it?
Okay.
Thanks.
Does staff want to see a recommendation from us to send that letter? Or are we good?
Resolution would be great.
Okay, so a resolution to follow up with the Cascadeni land use management process to provide information and request a meeting with the contractor responsible for social and economic study. Moved by me, second by Councillor Gerwing. I'm just waiting to see that they've got it. We've got it. We're good. Okay. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Are there any opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. 10 items for information. Somebody move those. Moved by Councillor Gerwing, second by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. That brings us down to new business. There is none. Are there any standing items for this, or sorry, any council reports?
So July 17th, I attended the BC Rural Health Network Implementation Committee meeting, which where we began the network's primary care review work. And this meeting focused on the primary care model. So for everybody that thought that summer was like a break thing, it's like the BC Rural Health Network did not get that memo. July 18th, I attended the BC Rural Health Network executive meeting, and on the 23rd, their board meeting. And just of note, I've been appointed as the network's representative on the BC Health Coalition. And this coalition champions a strong public healthcare system. They are a democratic, nonpartisan, and consensus-based community of individuals and organizations that span the province of British Columbia. They advocate for evidence-based improvements to the public healthcare system, stimulate public education on healthcare issues, and drive positive change to our healthcare system through campaigns across the province. They are really excited to have the BC Rural Health Network involved, and they're super excited to have somebody from the NRM participating. So that was really cool that they were so excited to have us on board. And July 28th, I participated in the Government Transfer Policy Development meeting. July 30th, I attended the virtual meeting with Deputy Minister Bobby Plekas, Ministry of Infrastructure, and other Northern Regional Hospital districts, continuing the discussion around the rising capital healthcare costs and associated unequitable taxation requirements. And finally, on August 1st, I met with Alice Muirhead from RCCBC and Diana Penny, investigating possible connections and resources with RCCBC and how they might positively impact and support healthcare in the NRM. Thanks.
Okay, busy.
Summer break.
So yeah, since our last meeting, I attended Sickany Ranch for the gathering of the drummers. Was very good. They got I think twice as many drummers as they had the first year. That's really turning into a very big cultural event. And for the day that I was there, I thought it was very, very good. I also attended the meeting on the 30th with the Deputy Minister I felt a little bit out of place because we were the only elected officials there. I thought that there would be other mayors and chairs at that, but it turned out to be a staff meeting, and that's perhaps maybe because it was with the deputy minister and the minister couldn't attend. So, but it was interesting to hear, you know, their comments with respect to the rising costs of infrastructure and building infrastructure in the medical space. And we've known that because, you know, we see multiple pages of capital items being put up every year by Northern Health, and they get half of the first page dealt with. How they go about assessing how much each regional hospital district is responsible for, you know, it's this 40%, but it seems like that's a number that's all over the map based on what you can negotiate with the Northern Health and with the ministry. So, you know, they're looking for a better deal. Most of this discussion is focused around the new health tower and heart center in Prince George and how they're gonna go about paying that. You know, I'm a believer that we will pay our fair share, but we're not gonna see a health center like that or a heart center here or in the Northeast. So I'm a believer that we pay our fair share, but it's determining what fair is. You know, when it comes to accessing that center in Prince George, you know, there's an increased cost of travel, accommodations, all of that. And the further you get away, the more it costs you to participate. So, yeah, I'm interested to see how this discussion goes forward, and we'll make sure that we continue to be a part of the discussion. So, you know, we could have said no, we just don't even want any part of it, but I think we're better on the inside of the discussion than we are on the outside after the decision's been made. So, yeah. So that was that. As I said, I felt a little out of place there, but I listened with intent. And I think that's pretty much all. I was on vacation for most of that time. There was a few things on here. Yeah, no, that's BC Conservative Party, and that's just me. That's not for council. So, okay, it's all. I'm just looking at my agenda or my schedule, and it's all there's several places where it's there. So, all right. Any other council reports? Seeing none, there's no business outstanding. Are there any notice of motions for the next meeting? Seeing none, are there any public or news media questions? Any online in the gallery? No? Okay. And in a resolution to move into a closed meeting to discuss section 91(1) personnel. Moved by Councilor Goering, second by Councilor Andrews. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none? All right, we'll move in camera. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, thank you very much. We are returned from the closed meeting. There is nothing to report from that closed meeting at this time. So we are ready to adjourn the regular meeting. Moved by Councilor Goering, second by Councilor Andrews. All in favor? Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.